Welcome to the sports podcast that will put you in the zone all the time. Welcome to Pac Sports Zone with me, your host, the Sports Gawd Peter Pacman Clarke. What up, guys? We're here for another episode of Pac Sports Zone, and listen, it's a big week of sports this week. We had everything going on, whether it was football signings or it was big wrestling events, but I have to start with what happened last night. As we're filming here right now on a Sunday morning, I have to talk about what happened last night. Chocolatito Gallo was an unbelievable fight of the year. It'll be tough to top it. It was just back and forth, and in the end, Estrada ended up getting the win. What tainted the win was there was a 117-111 card. There was no way that he won 9 rounds, no matter what. But it's one of those fights that it almost gave boxing fans life because it was what we expected it to be, the back and forth war back. It reminded us of what happened with them 9 years ago, but it also reminded boxing fans of what pisses boxing fans off and not takes casual fans away, as you had a horrible card that looks like it was filled out at 5 o'clock in the evening rather than at night during the fight, which the fight ended late. And this is one, like I said, this fight was so good that it didn't make people complain about being up at 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, knowing that we even had to push an hour forward last night. So it was just a great back and forth fight. As I said, I had Estrada winning 7 rounds to 5. I think it could have been 7 rounds to 5 either way. I know a lot of people that I respect their opinion had Chocolatito winning, and but you know what? You have to, the person who filled out the card needs to be held accountable for it. And I'm the first person to always say that a lot of boxing fans, they say, well, the right person won, which in my opinion makes no point. That's not keeping anybody accountable. That you have to deal with that judge because of that card. He gave rounds to Estrada that I have no idea how he gave it to Estrada. But if you go on and speak with probably some of the most respected boxing guys you hear, some of the rounds he gave to him, neither of the other judges gave to him, but maybe the actual boxing writer or boxing opinion gave it to him. So, like I said, it could have gone a lot of different ways. I think it was 7-5 either way. I think the people that are saying that there's absolutely no way that Estrada won this fight, I think that, listen, watch it again, no sound, it was a close fight, and there was about 6 swing rounds. Half the rounds were about swing rounds that could have gone either way. And most people gave Estrada the first round. Most people gave Chocolatito the second round, and after that, it just blew up. I gave Chocolatito the third round. Another one of my good boxing friends gave that to Estrada, and I thought it was a clear Chocolatito round. So, and then 5, 6, 7, 8. The 11th were all rounds that could have gone to either person. I mean, the guys threw over 2,000 total punches. You throw that many punches, it's going to be hard to judge it, because not only was that many punches thrown, but it wasn't like it was one-sided. They had rounds where they both just connected on 90 punches, and between the two of them, just connected, not even thrown, connected on 90 punches. It was just 95 punches for one round, I think it was. It was just one of those fights that was beautiful to watch. It brought back the old school boxing feel. And I think that the 117-111 card is really going to taint it, but it sets up 2 great fights. As, listen, we're going to see against the rat killer, Sor, Mandasi. We're going to see him go possibly against El Gallo. We're going to see possibly a rematch here with Chocolatito. It's going to be great. I mean, this is probably the funnest division to watch in boxing. I mean, obviously people like watching the heavyweights with knockouts, and the welterweight has been the deepest pool of talent with Spence and with Crawford. But these fights with the 115 guys, and even if you go down a little for 112 and up a little and 118, these guys just go all out. They go balls to the wall, and it's just fun to watch. You don't really get a disappointing fight. So I know that a lot of casual fans don't really get out there for the little guys, but I know last night probably did pretty well. I hope it does rope the casual fan in, because That was why you watched boxing last night. That was the reason why most of us became boxing fans. And it happened on a day when Marvelous Marvin Hagler passed away, and he would have been proud to see that type of a fight, because that's the type of fights that he was in, where you just went at it. It was good boxing skill. It wasn't being too cautious. It was just one of those fights where it would have made him proud. And rest in peace to Marvelous Marvin Hagler, as he passed away at the age of 66 yesterday. Moving on to some other events, they announced a couple events. Demetrius Andrade versus Liam Williams is not really into it. They still haven't announced the venue for the Canelo fight against BJ Saunders, and that fight is going to be May 8th. Not sure if it's probably going to be either Dallas or Vegas. Still not sure yet. Still a lot of things to go on in boxing, but listen, everybody just should appreciate what happened and what you saw last night, going back and forth with that fight. Both guys hitting each other with hard shots, and it was a close fight. No matter how you had it, just enjoy that you had a great fight. But moving on from that, a lot of football news this week, especially if you're a Titans fan and Cowboys fan. First, last week it was the first show, so I didn't really get to announce about J.J. Watt signing with the Cardinals. It's a little bit of a surprise to me. Cardinals are a team that needed defense. They had the money to get him, and they structured his contract that this is pretty much a 2-year deal, but it's a 2-year deal period, but this is a 1 year where they really get him at a good price. It'll be like $4.9 million this year. Next year, he jumps to like $15 million on the cap. So a lot of contracts this off season you'll see, and they're being structured. You'll see it. You saw it again with Tom Brady, where contracts are being structured where it's going to be very low this year, and then it takes a balloon payment. And is because they know that when the NFL signs their new TV deal, their new contracts and everything, the salary cap's going to blow up. It's going to be a huge amount. We're going to have the salary cap at like 182, 183 this year. It's going to jump way over 200 million in the next couple of years. So, and normally it jumps probably about 10 million. It's going to be a huge jump coming up pretty soon. So, they know that's going to happen. So a lot of people just deferring contracts for the next couple of years. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers pretty much have said 2023, we're going to half of our team salary is going to be dead cap. That's pretty much what they did. So they're going to go for it this year. They're going to go for it again next year. And then 2023, they'll be done. You won't hear from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for probably 2 years after that. But they'll be one of the worst teams in the league. But they're going for it as much as they can over the next 2 years. But other than J.J. Watt to the Cardinals, we had obviously the big signing of the week. Dak Prescott finally gets his contract for the Cowboys. I'm very happy for him, as I've been very supportive towards Dak Prescott. I thought he should have gotten his deal last year. And now that you look at the numbers of this deal, the Cowboys would have been much better off giving him his deal last year, as he gets a 4-year deal, $160 million. When you combine that with what he got last year on the franchise tag, he essentially got a 5-year deal for $191 million. And you see a lot of people last year, they were saying, oh, how could you pay him $35 million a year? He doesn't deserve $140 for 4 years. And now, he doesn't deserve $175 for 5 years, and now he ends up technically getting $191 for those 5 years. It's not about, everybody always says, oh, they're overvalued, they're overpaid. You're worth what you get, and Dak understood that it was about supply and demand. The Cowboys had to pay him, or they were going to go without a quarterback for a few years, and it's hard to find a good QB. And Dak is a top 10 QB, and it's very hard to find that out of nowhere. There's going to be a lot of QBs coming up in this draft that we'll get to in a couple seconds, but over the next couple weeks before we get to the draft. But it's very hard to get a top 10 QB just out of nowhere. And he's been working on a cheap contract for the first 4 years, $4 million, and finally got paid in his 5th year with a franchise tag. It was time to pay Dak. You should have paid him last year. You waited a year too late. It cost you probably an extra 15, 20 million to do it. But at least now he will be the Cowboys quarterback for the next 4 years. Moving on to the Titans. Titans fans, were pretty much pretty much digging their own graves this week, as there was a lot of Titans Twitter just getting themselves killed. As one, they traded Isaiah Wilson. I said he would never be cut because it would be a waste. It benefited him to keep him on the roster rather than just cut him. But this is essentially a giveaway. It will cost them a little bit in dead cap. It will help them in the future. But it was a wasted pick by John Robinson. And now some fans are out there saying, oh, great job by John Robinson to get anything for Isaiah Wilson. He swapped picks in the 6th, 7th round. That's nothing. He didn't get anything for him. And he's still going to cost him on cap space. It was just a bad pick. He was the one who took him in the first round last year. It was a horrible first round pick. The kid has talent. He's extremely immature. He's been arrested or at least taken by police custody for numerous things, whether it's DUI, whether it's COVID-related issues, whether it's having a party during COVID restriction times, a huge party in a dorm room. It was just a bad first year for Isaiah Wilson. Maybe the fresh start in Miami will change everything for him because he is very talented. He's very good as a run grinder. He's not great in pass protection, but we'll see how he does at Miami. It's a great chance for them as they only swap 7th round picks and they get a 1st round pick that is just picked last year. Titans also continue to cut other people as the wide receiver. Pretty much most of them were expected. Adam Humphries, the wide receiver, I said he would get cut. He did. That saved them probably about $4 or $5 million. They also cut Malcolm Butler, who was their best cornerback last year. But it does save them $10 million. That's something they really need as they went into the offseason with only $2 million in salary cap relief. And then they also cut Kenny Vaccaro, the safety, which also saved them around $4 million. So they're right around the $20 million right now in cap space. If they really want to push for some other things, they can restructure Taylor Lewan, their left tackle. They can restructure Roger Saffold, their left guard. They can also restructure. They can also find a way to do something with Adoree, who's right now 10, 11 million on the books right now, but he's in the last year of his deal. So there's things they can do to restructure and change things around. Not sure if they're going to do it. Not sure if they're working on it. But one thing they obviously need this offseason is 2 pass rushers and 2 wide receivers because they don't have a number 2 or a number 3 wide receiver, and they don't have a starting pass rusher or a back rotational pass rusher. One thing that is starting, though, is the NFL free agency frenzy period, and as that is starting, you have some of the top free agents, just to go over some of them per position. You got people like Shaq Barrett if you want a pass rusher. You got Ngatu if you want a pass rusher. Obviously, you got Bud Dupree if you want another pass rusher. There's going to be a lot of pass rushers out there. Matt Judon, Trey Hendrickson. Carl Lawson is somebody that I think Titans should really push after because he's probably going to be in the $10 million range, while some of the others will probably be near in the $15 million range. Leonard Floyd is out there as a pass rusher. Hassan Reddick as a pass rusher. Pass rusher is the position to get this offseason in terms of free agency. But you also have Trent Williams, stud left tackle, rated by PFF, who I don't know if you want to take their rating seriously, but they're usually pretty good with the offensive linemen. He's the top tackle in the game last year, and he's going to be a free agent. You got top 10 wide receiver in Kenny Galladay, who I really like. He's still young. If you do want to spend money on a running back, I wouldn't, but if you do, you got Jones, Aaron Jones from Green Bay Packers. You got Juju Smith out there, William Fuller. Joe Thuney is probably is a big time guard from Patriots. He'll be out there. Corey Lindsey, the center from Buffalo, is out there. Anthony Harris, the safety from Minnesota. And even some veterans, linebackers, KJ Wright from Seattle's out there. I already mentioned with Butler and Vaccaro being out there. And then you also have some of the quarterbacks. Now, this isn't obviously top quarterbacks are not free agents, which is why Dak Prescott had the leverage with the Dallas Cowboys, because if Dak Prescott ever made it to free agency, he would have made this money probably with an extra year. He probably would have ended up with $200 million for 5 years at least. So the best QBs available, First of all, this week Cam Newton just signed 1 year, $14 million deal. Looks like only $3.5 million is actually guaranteed. So that took him off the block, which left Jameis Winston and Ryan Fitzpatrick. If those are your two options and you're trying to win, you probably should just skip this year and go towards next year. So you're not going to get a quarterback in free agency very often. You'll see it maybe once every 10 years that you'll see a top tier guy, but it's not really going to happen. You have to really get it through the draft. And you get guys like Jameis, you get guys like Fitzpatrick to either be temporary starters while you have a young guy or waiting for a young guy, or you have them to be backups to, if you're a championship aspiring team, you need good depth and you need to make sure that you cover your bases in case your starting quarterback gets hurt, like the Saints did last year with Jameis, but they still screwed it up with playing people that shouldn't be playing. But moving off of that, point is going to be a big off. The tampering period, the legal tampering period starts tomorrow, and people are able to sign from the 17th. So over the next couple of days and next week when you hear the show, I'm sure there'll be a lot of signings. We'll discuss them, go over them, and it's just going to be a fun week of football. It's always a fun week to see big names change teams, and we already had that with J.J. Watt. So it's going to be fun. So with that being said, moving on to college basketball. Today is bracket day. All the top names. Now, I always say the people like Joe Lunardi and all the other people that put out the brackets every week leading up to this, it is the most overhyped, useless job that you can possibly have and actually get paid. You pretty much, as a bracketology person, you pretty much have to say, check who wins every tournament, which is like 30 to 40 names already. You check and see who is still in the top 25 that didn't win their tournament. That knocks it up to pretty much around 50-something. And then you usually just say, all right, who are the next 4 best mid-majors that didn't win, 2 to 4 mid-majors that didn't win their tournament, and who are the best 4 to 6 big names that didn't win their tournament. And you just throw them in a jumble, say, all right, these are my last 4 in, these are my last 4 out. It's too much. It's like, I can pretty much right now off the top of my head just have a list of all the people that won their conference tournament, the list of people that are in the top 25 still that didn't win their conference tournament, and just pick a couple names, and I could probably be 1 or 2 off. And these guys are getting paid a lot of money to try to do this. But you know what? With that being said, with that out the window, the point is that there's still good games. Today will be the last day of some of the conferences, like the Big Ten, the SEC. They both play today. It's just conference tournaments are always fun to watch. I still pretty much love watching the Big East tournament when it's the old school big teams, whether it's the UConns in there or Creighton's kind of new, but watching UConn, watching Georgetown, and unbelievable job by Patrick Ewing, by the way, getting a team that was under 500 to run the table, now 13-12, and they'll be in the tournament. Just a great job by him on a team that was picked last in the Big East. So, but watching these tournaments, watching March Madness start, Houston with their buzzer beater earlier this week. There was another team with a buzzer beater. March Madness has begun, and brackets start today. So make sure you're watching, obviously, on Thursday and Friday when all the teams will be playing. And then by next weekend, we'll be ready for the Sweet 16. Going into the NBA, as we stick with basketball, All-Star breaks we had last weekend. It was pointless, in my opinion. The only thing is to actually get a break for the players. But the All-Star games and stuff like that, listen, 3-point contest, love watching it. If you watched it, you realize how great Steph is. Steph was like playing his own video game out there. Skills competition is actually not bad to watch. Both of them, in my opinion, are better than slam dunk competition, which, once again, disappointed. It's horrible. They put it at the halftime of the All-Star game, and it's just horrible. It's just, I don't know what you got to do to change it. I don't know if you got to find a way to get stars back in it, what you have to give them as an incentive. But I'll just say Zach LaVine is unbelievable dunker. He was doing dunks in practice that are better than we saw during the dunk competition. So it's really something that they got to change around. But second half is beginning. We'll see if teams can keep up with what they were doing, like the Utah Jazz, Philadelphia. And B took a little spill. didn't look great, but they did test and nothing was structurally bad. So it looks like he's going to miss probably a couple weeks and he'll be back. So we'll see how that hurts his MVP, as he was probably the leading candidate. I know in terms of odds betting, he was the leading candidate to win MVP. So we'll see if somebody will jump over him during this time. But it's going to be a fun time in the NBA as we get into see. I really like the new structure they have for the playoffs with a play-in game and everything like that. It really makes it do or die. Anytime you make a game do or die, you make it exciting. So I really like that they're going to be doing that. Moving on to some wrestling out before we check out today. NXT, they had their two big announcements. That TakeOver is going to be a 2-day event, and they announced their new tag team belts. And I think they kind of screwed. They gave the tag team belts to Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez, who were a great fight with Nia Jax, with Shayna Baszler for the tag team championships, and they kind of got screwed in that fight. So they gave them championship belts, NXT tag team belts, and they literally lost it in 5 minutes. It's like, I don't know what the point, what was it with? I don't know. They should have just had the match for the title and that was it. But Shotzi Blackheart and Ember Moon are the new tag team champions for NXT. Congratulations to them. I guess congratulations to Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez for being the first ever NXT tag team championships. But I didn't know the point of having that switched over that fast. However, it did set up Io Shirai, who beat Toni Storm in a great match during that night against Raquel Gonzalez. So it's going to be a great time for TakeOver with that, because Raquel Gonzalez has been on fire this year. She pretty much is on a run that is, you usually see runs like this when they're about to move it to the main roster. That's how good it was. So she's been very good this year. You kind of saw this type of a year out of Rhea Ripley last year. So it's going to be fun to see if they hand over the title to Io, or if Io is going to continue to reign. And NXT, they really do give the titles to the guys for a long time. You saw Adam Cole have a reign for over a year. Io's got to be near to that pretty much right now, as she won the title, I think, just after WrestleMania last year. So she's got to be nearing to that. It's really fun to see old school wrestling. Over the UK, their guys keep it for like 2 years. You've had two champions over the last 4 years between the Bruiserweight and then Walter. So over them, they rarely have title changes. And their women's champion also has the title for 2 years. It's actually pretty fun to watch some of the NXT. When you go to the main roster, but before I get to the main roster, another match from that night, obviously Finn Balor versus Adam Cole. Every time they go against each other is going to be a good match. It ended up being a little bit of interference, a little bit of distraction by Kyle O'Reilly. It set up what is going to be a great rivalry between Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly, guys who've been best friends, and now they get to be bitter enemies. And it also ended with a great ending as Finn Balor, waiting in the ring, senses the coldness, the aggression behind him, and he starts to turn around saying, "What took you so long?" And the camera pans over and it's Karrion Kross. That is one of the dream matches for people, to see Karrion Kross and Finn Balor. Obviously, that's going to be at TakeOver. That's going to be an unbelievably great match. And if they do put the production into it, it's going to be the two best entrances, in my opinion, in all of that WWE, NXT, even AEW brand. To have those two guys, they have great entrances. I'm not sure if they're going to go Balor. They're not going to go Balor, obviously, with Demon, because it looks like Demon's not going to be there for a while as he's a heel. But to have that entrance, to have Karrion Kross with Scarlett, is going to be a great match between those two. Over on the main roster, it looks like it's going to be possibly Lashley versus Drew at WrestleMania. We'll see if Sheamus is able to either stop that from happening, and we have a new person over the next couple weeks to get into WrestleMania, or if it will be Drew versus Lashley, which would be a great match, as both of them are two powerhouse guys that are not easily beaten. I can see them doing a lot of good things with those two people. On the SmackDown, you have Roman still versus Edge, but now it looks like Daniel Bryan trying to get involved. They set up, 2 days ago, they set up where it's going to be Edge versus Jey Uso. The winner gets to be the special referee when it's Daniel Bryan versus Roman, and the winner faces Edge. So everything's going to be very weird for SmackDown. I kind of like, in my order, I would say NXT's obviously been the best. They've seemed to ramped it up. They had a little low period, but they seem to ramping it back up right now. And I really like what they're doing. Then I like Raw, then SmackDown. Typically, I like SmackDown more, but they're in a little bit of a glitchy phase right now with the Roman, DB, and Edge. So we'll see what happens and how that clears up, especially after Fastlane. In AEW, they had their pay-per-view last week. They kind of made fun of it because it was a weird ending with the explosion that wasn't an explosion. And, it was fine. I think the biggest thing is obviously at the end of the show, and we've been seeing this coming for the weeks, is MJF finally turned on Jericho. The surprise is that he actually had his own group. He built his own inner circle, and it can set up some really good matches. As FTW, you can see them going against Ortiz and Santana. Obviously, you have the big man and Warlock as he can go against Jake Hager. And I've been saying for a while that Sammy Guevara is a future star in the sport. He's still a young kid compared to a lot of guys. A lot of guys are in their late 30s and 40s, and he's still in his 20s. Him and Adam Cole are both really young guys that I think could be the stars of the sport worldwide, not just within their organizations. And you're going to have him in some great matches over the next. I thought they were going to have him versus Jericho and then put him over that way, but they seem to put him and Jericho back together as they both were attacked by MJF and his new group. But like I said, you're going to have FTR versus Santana and Ortiz, great tag team match. You're going to have MJF versus Jericho, obviously. You're going to have Jake Hager versus Warlock. And then you're going to have Sammy Guevara going against Shawn Spears, Mr. Perfect 10 from WWE, who I don't think he's that good, but I mean, maybe they can find a way to have him step up his game against Sammy in a match with that. So the match ended, the whole night ended with them, that group attacking the inner circle with Jericho's group. It was a good ending. The show itself wasn't that great in my opinion, but I love the ending, and that's going to be something that they can really build on over the next weeks and possibly months. And that'll wrap up another week of Pack Sports Zone. It's my birthday today, so it's going to be a fun day. It's going to be a fun week as brackets come out today. It's going to be a fun month as I don't know if you can smell it right now, but baseball is coming soon. You can smell it in the air. You can smell the peanuts and Cracker Jacks. Football is obviously in their main sport. They have their draft coming up. They have free agency coming up. NBA is going to be ramping down pretty soon. You're going to be talking about lottery with them as well as teams making the playoffs. And listen, baseball's around the corner. So with that said, I'm your host, Peter Pacman Clarke, Pack Sports Zone. We'll catch you next week. Peace out.